What's going on, boys and girls, men and women, people that don't turn work in? It's Coach Dassinger, taking some time out of this beautiful Friday morning to talk about Unit 2. All right, a lot of you guys haven't turned stuff in for Unit 2, which is fine. It's not a problem. If you get it in by Sunday, everything's fine. And some of you guys did not do very well on, I think it's 2.04, which is the federalism in action. You just didn't understand what federalism was, or if you did, you only wrote a sentence. So I'm going to provide another assignment for that, and if you do that, it'll replace whatever you got, which wasn't very good. So I'm going to try and go through all of Unit 2 to help you guys out. So if you watch this, it's going to be about 5 to 6, 7 minutes, and use your book. You should be fine. Now, guys, let me tell you this. I went to University of Georgia. I was a lot like you guys. I procrastinated a lot, which is fine. I get it. If you guys want an easy tip on how to do well on your test, just look at the vocab. Go through chapters 3 and 4 and write down every bolded word. And then write down the definition next to it. And then use that. I can't ask you questions. They can't ask you questions without asking you about the vocab that is in that unit. So here, if you don't listen to anything else, and you stop it now after 1 minute and 30 seconds, go read the vocab, write down all of the bolded words, all of the definitions, and then take the test, take all of the assignments using that, okay? Now I'm gonna try and verbally go over some of the vocab now with you. The first assignment is Unit 1 or Unit 2, Section 1, which is a vocabulary assignment, and it really just deals with the vocabulary of the Constitution. So I'm going to throw some stuff at you real quick, okay? First off, the Constitution, before it was written, had some themes, okay? 4 themes we need to know about. Number 1 is popular sovereignty, which means that the people have the power. So we're the ones that are allowing people to rule over us, okay? Number 2, it had checks and balances because they were still scared of a monarch. So they didn't want to have one branch get the most power. So that's why you have Article 1 about the legislative branch, Article 2, the executive, and Article 3 is the judicial branch. And the big power the judicial branch has, and you're going to see this on your test multiple times, so make sure you know it, it's judicial review. And that's simply the ability to rule something constitutional or not. So it's when the Supreme Court reviews a law or action and says yes or no, you can do that according to the Constitution. So that's judicial review. So that's a real big vocabulary term. Okay, so those are some themes, and there's one more theme that we're going to talk about at length in a second, which is federalism, which is a division of power between the federal and the state government. Okay, so those are the big themes. Okay, we didn't want to have a strong central government. That's why we have separation of powers, checks and balances. We wanted the states to still have power, even though the articles were a huge fail. That would be federalism, but we also wanted the people to have a say. All right, so that's popular sovereignty. So those are the real big themes of the Constitution. Now let's kind of break down the Constitution, right? Article 1 is about the legislative branch. There's 2 components to the legislative branch. The House, which was created for the will of the people. We actually vote for the House. You vote for the Senate now, but that didn't happen until the 17th Amendment. So we've got the House, which is the will of the people, and then the Senate, which is supposed to be a little more formal. The House, real quick, the House can impeach the president. Make sure you know that. The House impeaches the president. The Senate ratifies treaties, they approve appointments, they hold the trial after impeachment. So that's a big thing, okay? And those are delegated powers. Delegated, which means they're given to the federal government. No one else can impeach the president except for the House of Representatives, so it's a federal power. All right, let's move on to the executive branch. That is the president. The president has a lot of formal powers that we'll talk about later, but again, the president does not declare war. Congress declares war. President Bush, back in the day, said he declared a war on terror. You can't do that. That's a term. It's not a people group, and the president can't declare war anyways. So anytime you hear a president say they declare war, they can't. The last war we actually had, the last time Congress declared war, was World War II. So Korea, Vietnam, those aren't wars, okay? They're conflicts, but we call them wars. That's politicians will, whatever, right? Article 3 is the judicial branch. Article 4 is the full faith and credit. I don't think that's on your test. Article 5 is amending the Constitution. That is definitely on your test, amending the Constitution. It starts in Congress and then ratified by the states. starts in Congress, 2/3 of Congress, 3/4 of states. Amending the Constitution is definitely there. And then Sixth Amendment is this thing we call the Supremacy Clause. The Supremacy Clause is on your test as well. I look really weird doing the thumbs up thing, but don't worry about it. It's 9 a.m. about to go play golf because it's beautiful. And sometimes I like to do thumbs up stuff. So, sorry, that's what you get with me. But the Supremacy Clause says anytime there's a federal law conflicting with the state law, the federal law wins. The federal law wins, okay? A lot of people have a problem with this, right? I think one of the questions on your test may ask you, what would happen if the states were supremo of the federal government? Slavery would be an example, right? Because some states said they could have slaves, where the federal government had to come in and say, no, you can't. So if the state law was supreme, then possibly we could still have something like that. So just understand that would be a good example to use when you do your test questions. And anytime you do a test question, use examples. If you use examples, I know you actually know what you're talking about and you're not just writing stuff down from the book. So use examples, okay? That's the Supremacy Clause. The seventh is ratification, which it happened, okay? So those are big things. One other real big thing that the Constitution has, because we talked about powers the federal government have, like powers that the states have, powers that not powers that states have, sorry. I'm doing this stream of consciousness. Delegated powers are powers of the federal government, right? But there were some things that the federal government could not do. Okay, and so they couldn't grant titles of nobility. They could not deny you due process of the law. So due process is essentially, they have to tell you why you're being arrested, and you have to have a trial, and the federal government cannot deny that anymore. That's Article 1, Section 9. So just make sure you know what due process is. Eminent domain, you might, if you've been watching the debates, which if you haven't, I don't blame you. They're really frustrating and boring, but eminent domain was talked about a lot, and that's the ability that the federal government has to come and take your property. They can do that as long as they pay you for it. So that's what eminent domain is. Okay, I'm trying to hit all the stuff I kind of saw taking the quiz and the test. All right, so next up, let's talk about federalism real quick. Federalism is a big thing. There's one article where all you have to do is you have to just sort things from delegated, reserved, and concurrent. All right, real quick. This is going to be on your test too. Delegated are powers of the federal government. All right, the way I teach my kids this at school is delegated starts with a D. They're also called enumerated, which starts with an E. And federal is an F. So F-E-D, federal, federal, enumerated, delegated. Reserved are left up to the states. So if it's not given to the federal government, it's reserved to the states. That's the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment says anything not delegated to the federal is reserved to the states. R and S, that's how I kind of remember it. Reserved starts with an R, state starts with an S. They're right next to each other in the alphabet. It's kind of lame, but whatever, it works. And then next is concurrent, and I still use the alphabet trick because C and B start with letters that are next to each other in the alphabet as well. So C and B, concurrent, and they both have that power. And I'm going to go through a couple real quick after I take a sip of coffee. Okay, federal government. Powers of the federal government. So only the federal government can do these things. Just think about it. Like taxing, the federal government does that, but so does the state. If you have a job, you get taxed from the federal and the state government. So that would be a concurrent because they both do it. So federal government, the post office is a federal government. They can declare war. Only the federal government can declare war. Only Congress can declare war. Georgia can't declare war. Money. Georgia doesn't have its own dollars. It doesn't do that. What else can they only do? Interstate commerce. That's another one. There's a lot of stuff only the federal government can do. And you would just have to, again, go through, I can't list like all 10 or 15 of them. I did another video on this though. So if you just go watch that video, I'm going to stop. Reserve powers are powers that only the states have. Education and election are the big ones there. And then concurrent, taxes, laws, courts, all of that's concurrent. Highways, there's Georgia highways and federal highways. There's Georgia courts, state courts, Georgia laws, federal laws, Georgia courts, federal courts, Georgia highways, federal highways. So all of that stuff is both. They both have it. They're concurrent. But I did a video on it, so go watch the video. Now, the federalism 2.04 that everyone screwed up here, it's real simple, okay? Why do we have federalism? It's because the articles were terrible, and so is a monarchy, right? So we had articles, which is essentially just the states. That was really, really bad, okay? Shays' Rebellion, freaking farmers were killing everyone because we didn't have an army, because we took all the power away from the federal government because we were scared of a monarch. And that is only a federal government, right? It's only one person ruling everyone. So the monarch didn't work. We fought a war to get rid of that, revolutionary. And then the articles didn't work because of Shays' Rebellion and states just doing whatever they wanted, and that was bad. So we had to create federalism. That's how it evolves. That's how it develops. Federalism is a division of power between the federal and the state. Division of power between federal and state. And that just goes back to the powers we talked about. There are delegated powers, there are reserved powers. A couple of things you may need to know for your test. Sorry, as I'm going to move over here, you get a different angle of me. A couple of things you need to know for the test as far as federalism goes. The Federalist Papers. What were the Federalist Papers? Okay, were they advocating federalism? Yes, they were, but they were really advocating the Constitution. Like, they wanted people to sign on to the Constitution. And so when you have that question, like, I need you to give me examples of Federalist Papers. I want you to talk about Federalist 51. It's got to be in your book. I know it's in your book. Federalist Paper 51 was separation of powers, and people were scared of a monarchy, and Federalist Paper 51 said, hey, don't worry about it because the federal government has a bunch of separate powers and they have checks and balances, and so it'll be cool. So that's what the Federalist Papers were all about. Not necessarily federalism, even though the word federalist and federalism are the same, but the Federalist Papers wanted to advocate for the Constitution. They wanted to get the small states to sign on, to let them know that the federal government wasn't going to be so large. All right, so that's also, I think my daughter's crying. That's not good. Oh, speaking of which, hey, there's Koopa. Koopa, stop being an acorn. Hey, Koopa, look at everybody. Look. Nope, sorry, she doesn't want to look at you. But that's what Federalist Papers are. Federalism. A couple of things you need to know about federalism. Now the federal government can kind of like tell the states what to do. Those are called mandates. Sometimes they will bribe states with money. Those are called grants. I don't really think anything else is on your test about that, so don't worry about it. The Bill of Rights, all of those questions are those are simple. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments, and I think pretty much all of them are I think those are all graph questions. If it's a graph question, just take your time. You'll be fine. It's just read the graph, and the graph has the answer, so you're good. Bill of Rights assignment, they're supposed to find 10 articles. That's easy right now, especially with Apple. Have you guys seen what's going on with Apple and how the federal government wants Apple to hack into a phone of the California shooters? That would be a violation of the Fourth Amendment, but it's a weird situation, and so I know you can find multiple articles about the Fourth Amendment in Apple right now, so go for it. Fourth Amendment search and seizure, and how cops have to have a warrant to come into your home unless you invite them in or they can see something in plain sight. So if you're having a party and the cops come by and they say, can we come in, just say no, and make sure no one is in the window doing bad things. I mean, don't do bad things in general, but if that's just hide it. And that's why they're going to walk around. They walk around like your house too, to look in the backyard because they can see it in plain sight. So just be careful with that, guys. But that's your Fourth Amendment. As I'm winding down here, I'm trying to look and see anything that I missed. I know there's stuff that I missed because it's a huge unit. And again, if you just go back and read the vocabulary, know your vocabulary, you will know the test. If you know the vocabulary, you'll know the test. And guys, email me. I will sit down and I will talk with you about these things. There's a lot of ways that I can get face-to-face, but not actually face-to-face, and talk about stuff. I want everyone to do well. First, we got to turn assignments in, and second, use me. I think I've tried to call a lot of you. If I haven't called you yet, send me your actual cell phone number. I'm not going to bother you, but you can see now, like, I'm not that creepy. I've got a house. I've got a dog who's walking around. My wife is in there. I've got a big green egg. I've got a playpen. I mean, I'm a normal person. I'm not gonna like stalk you. I just want you to do well. Like, I want you to get an A in this class, and we can do that. I'm gonna provide you opportunities. If you failed some other assignments, I will go back. I know people, and not really, but I know how to go and change grades. I'll go change the grades, but you got to give me a little bit of effort. Okay, you got to give me a little bit of effort. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, email me. I'll call you and we'll take it together the first time so you know kind of what they're thinking about. I don't care. We've got a lot of units left, and I want you guys to do extremely, extremely well. This was 15 minutes, but I think it's 15 minutes well spent, especially if you A, remember to do vocab, just know your vocab, and B, call me and we'll take it together the first time. I don't mind, just don't tell my superiors because that would be problematic. Like, I don't want to get in trouble, but I want you guys to get an A, and if you getting an A gets me in a little bit of trouble, that's fine. I'm not going to take every test for you, but I'm not going to take it for you, period, but we'll work together as you take it. I don't mind doing that. Have a great rest of your break. Get your assignments turned in. There's no late late fees, if you will. Get them all turned in. Contact me if you need me. I want to help. All right? All right. Have a good break. Get that stuff in.